JJ and I had been fishing for ideas that we could do together as a producer-director team. And we had just spent, I don't know, maybe the better part of a year just in our friendship talking about the kind of films we love to see and the kind of films we'd love to make someday, and which of those films had a kind of mutual appeal. And the one thing that we did land on immediately was our mutual history in making 8mm, JJ's case, Super 8, because he's much younger than me. In my case, before Super 8, I made 8mm films when I was growing up. And we had a very, very similar background. I was telling him about all the adventures I had as a kid making little movies with the neighborhood, my neighborhood friends, and he had the same experience. And so we thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a movie about, in the 70s, you know, set in period times, about young people making movies, you know, 14-year-olds making 8mm movies. And that's how it all started. Later on, JJ went off with, you know, with this notion, and then came back to me and said, what if we take the idea of kids making 8mm films, and what if we kind of blend it in a genre, with a larger time-worn genre, which is they are making movies, and like the Zapruder film, something appears on their 8mm dailies that unlocks an entire mystery and crisis event. We weren't quite sure how sci-fi the event was going to be when JJ first started pitching this idea to me, but it sounded really intriguing. It wasn't just going to be, you know, a movie about, you know, the kind of 70s, movie making culture, but it was going to be what that leads to. Well, if you want to be a movie director or a movie writer or a movie producer, you kind of got to start somewhere. It's a lot easier, getting a start today because it's so easy to get a video camera and go out and make a movie, and that becomes who you are. What that represents, you know, your ideas, your stories, your taste, and you can put it right on YouTube. So in a sense, not only can kids today make their own movies, they've got distribution. We didn't have that in the 8mm days. You know, we had to lug an 8mm projector, we had to plug it into somebody's wall, put up a screen, and show it to someone patient enough to sit there for 5 minutes and watch. That was the challenge. And so that kind of informed my entire career, because I kind of began my career making movies, little movies. JJ began his career the same way. I think what makes JJ really unique is, A, he's technically proficient. His craft is it's like he's been directing for 30 years. He has an extraordinary sense of camera, lighting, composition, storytelling. He's one of the best narrative storytellers around. He's cut his teeth in television and been very successful with, you know, Alias and Lost and Fringe. And so the transition to movies has been effortless for him. He won't tell you that. He'll say it was really hard making the transition, but it just appears to me to have been a natural. I started in TV too, so we have that in common. He really bridges the generations between, JJ has a tremendous nostalgia for the old movies, the way movies used to be, the way sometimes they are now, and also what kids are talking about and thinking about today. And so he's as relevant as his own children in this world, and he's got tremendous, respect for all the kinds of movies that he grew up watching. JJ, with Super 8, made a movie that's both uniquely very new and also traditionally very old-fashioned. You know, he's got the sci-fi genre blended with this amazing dynamic of these kids and the way they talk and the way they behave toward one another, which is just the way kids have always been. And that's, I think, one of the unique qualities about JJ. He can write for kids. You know, he's not so far removed from his own, sort of memory hits and experiences growing up. And he made a movie that's at once relevant to today, even though it takes place in the 70s, and also that is extremely traditional.